Hey, this is Dan Golodner from Tales from the Ruther Library. I'm proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network with more than 200 labor radio shows and podcasts from across the country and around the world. The Labor Radio Podcast Network, where working people speak. Find us at laborradionetwork.org.
Hello, working people of Southwest Washington.
And
You're listening to episode 48 of Working to Live in Southwest Washington, produced by the Southwest Washington Central Labor Council. Like the bumper you heard at the top of the show says, we're also a proud member of the Labor Radio Podcast Network, with over 200 radio shows and podcasts for working people just like you. Find out more about the network at laborradionetwork.org. I'm Harold Phillips, and before we get started, we want to remind you that the views and opinions expressed in this show are not necessarily the views and opinions of the Southwest Washington Central Labor Council, its affiliate unions, our guests' unions or employers, not even your guitar or penny whistle. Is that a penny whistle, guys? What is that?
yeah, it's
It's
a
an
penny
audio
whistle.
medium. You can't nod. It is a penny whistle?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. No one's but theirs. Now that we've got that over with. Hi. It's been a minute, hasn't it? Just because we haven't posted a new episode in a while, though, don't think that Working to Live in Southwest Washington is going away. The Southwest Washington Central Labor Council is committed to all hardworking people, not just in Southwest Washington, but everywhere. The CLC is dedicated to achieving the highest standards of living, good working conditions, and family wage jobs for everyone. That fight isn't going away, and neither are we. We may not post a new episode every week or every month, but we're here for the long haul. Now, if you've been paying attention to the news, and no one's going to blame you if you've been avoiding it, believe me, you probably know that the state of Washington is facing a pretty severe budget deficit. Governor Bob Ferguson and the state legislature have a plan to address that deficit. A plan that includes pretty severe cuts to public services and the public servants who provide them. We're joined by two of those public servants who have come up with a really innovative way to let the world know about these cuts. They're members of the Washington Federation of State Employees, AFSCME Council 28, Charles Loeffler. Thanks for joining us, Charles.
Happy to be here.
And an old friend of the show, Joshua Eden. Thanks so much for being here, Josh.
Thank you for having me back.
So, Charles, Josh, I just said you're both public servants. What do you actually do for the people of Washington? What are your jobs?
Sure, I work as a social worker for the Department of Children, Youth, and Families in Vancouver, Washington. And so I work with our highest need level kids in behavioral rehabilitation services. I work with a lot of our family reconciliation service employees and a lot of our family voluntary service employees who work in those different areas inside the Department of Children, Youth, and Families.
I am also a social worker. I also work at the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And in my case, I supervise a team of social workers in King County who's specially designated for the King County Family Treatment Court. So what we do is we serve families who have a child or children in the dependency foster care system stemming from a parent's substance use disorder.
So, you're both social workers, and I think social worker is one of those jobs that a lot of people don't think of when they think of state jobs, right? They might think of the people who are working on the roads, or maybe the people who you call up when you have an issue with your driver's license.
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. From boats, rivers, roads, forests, camps, like all of those things state employees care for.
And actually, in 2024, I had an opportunity to serve DCYF employees as one of our representatives in the collective bargaining team for our biennial contract that's coming up. And I got to work with many of the different agencies that state government is comprised of. So we've got the Department of Financial Institutions. I didn't even know we had that. They make sure that Washington's financial institutions are sticking to practices that serve the public. And there's our Attorney General's office, there's the Division of Child Support, there's Department of Ecology, there's the Department of Licensing. There's this whole gamut of services.
So I have to ask, with all of those different people who are working at those departments and with all those Washington residents relying on the services those departments provide, what is the legislature and the governor's plan looking like for not just you who do the jobs, but for the recipients of these services? What is it that they're proposing?
Yeah, we've got a triangle with 3 different points right now because we've got the governor, we've got the House, and we've got the Senate, each with a different proposal. So the governor was first. He initially proposed a plan for furloughs for state employees monthly for 2 years, starting in July. And what that comes out to is about a 5% pay cut for state employees, while simultaneously taking those state employees away 1 day a month from being able to do the jobs that we already don't have the time and resources to fully do. A couple weeks ago, we got the Senate's proposal. The Senate leadership in the Senate Ways and Means Committee has come out with bills that would do those furloughs, not for 2 years, I think it's for 13 months. On top of those furloughs, though, they add a base pay cut. They add increasing the amount that state employees have to pay for healthcare insurance. And here's the kicker, taking away our right to collectively bargain on those healthcare premiums.
Wait a minute. So
yeah.
you're saying that you get more hours in the Senate plan for less pay. Oh, and by the way, you won't be able to negotiate anymore.
That's right. And we have to pay
That
more.
sounds great.
No, that sounds awful, Harold. That sounds awful to every single person I have talked to that is a WFC AFSCME Council 28 member. Nobody is supporting those plans.
Dare I ask what the House is proposing?
So the House is proposing, as I understand it, a plan that does not have any of those furloughs like we talked about. We do still have some concerns with the House's version, though. So in all 3 of these plans, there's a push to close Rainier School and Yakima Valley School. So what these are they're institutions run by DSHS, the Department of Social and Health Services, and they serve adults who have the most severe developmental disabilities and have not been able to live successfully in the community. Their families are testifying to the legislature this year about how they do not know what they would do if these facilities closed and their child was homeless. All 3 of these proposals want to close 2 of the 4 remaining facilities in the state of Washington.
Yeah, and that is huge. I mean, the impact of that would impact both our homeless population that is massively large already in the state of Washington, but it would affect our criminal justice system. It would affect people who have developmental disabilities, and people interacting with them don't know that and don't understand that. And when they interact with them, they're going to be concerned because these are not typical functioning adult humans. They're adult humans with developmental delays where they function at a much younger age. They don't have the emotional control or the emotional capacity when they find themselves in situations sometimes to not act out aggressively and to not act out violently. What we're doing by closing these facilities is just pushing the problem somewhere else.
And how are people who are struggling with homelessness going to be able to have services if the people who are supposed to provide those services aren't going to be able to work 1 day a month? I mean, I think Charles said it best. They're already overstrapped and under-resourced, and now you're going to take people off the line?
Yeah, and we've seen the impact of this in past furloughs when we've tried this kind of stuff, and it just doesn't work. what it causes are retention and recruitment issues. DCYF is still struggling from our last furlough, and we're still struggling to fill positions. Furloughing 1 day a week all state services, we recognize that in child welfare, our line staff and our line workers, they're not going to furlough because there are people being abused every day of the week. Child abuse doesn't take a day off, and yet all of their support staff will be furloughed.
And this gets at something that is kind of insidious in the culture of state government already, at least at the agency Josh and I work at. We have a major problem with unpaid overtime. This is employees working off the clock to meet the needs of the families that they're serving. And they are denied overtime, and yet they're working out of the goodness of their hearts. And there's a problem that we have where the powers that be kind of understand that social workers in particular, we're here because we care, right? We're here because we want to help people. And there's this kind of passive acceptance that free labor is going to continue. And when the governor says, let's furlough these social workers, my mind immediately goes to, okay, all these social workers are going to work those hours that they're not supposed to be paid for, and they're going to work those hours for free. And it's exploiting the care and concern of those employees for pinching pennies.
But I have to ask, Charles, a lot of people think that public employees get paid pretty well. In fact, you mentioned the contract that got bargained recently. Didn't public employees get a raise?
You know what? I'll take this one because that raise is null and void. That raise means nothing when you furlough us. When you furlough us 1 day a month, we lose 4.5% of our raise. Our cost of living raise wasn't even 4.5%. We were looking at 3% 1 year and then 2% the next year. We'll be taking a pay loss over the next 2 years furloughing. And not only that, the way they want to furlough makes no sense. Had they talked to anybody on the line who's working this job, who's going to take a furlough, I could tell you there's better ways to furlough. What I would like to see is our legislators coming to us, coming out into the field, meeting with the people who put them in positions of power to vote on things like their budget, to be coming out and talking to the people who put them in the position to have that vote. I mean, I don't see my representatives out in the field talking to me about what these impacts are going to do to my job. I don't see my legislative representatives out visiting people at DOT asking what it's going to do if we don't fully fund their budget.
And I just want to add to that, the state and the union both do research in preparation for the contract bargaining. And it was fascinating being part of the bargaining process because, we have all these conversations about the concepts and the things that we cared about and like what our goals were and our priorities were. And then there was this part of the bargaining process where I almost want to just say the geniuses on both sides of the table started going through all the data because they have this market data. And what that data showed us is that for state employees, pick the job, whatever it is that we're doing, if you compare us to comparable jobs in the private sector, we're like 30% behind market rate. So when we talk about state employees being, a cushy gig, that's not the reality that we're seeing. We're seeing our support staff, people who are doing records analysis or people who are handling reception. They were in some cases making a low enough rate that they were qualifying for public assistance themselves.
You have people who are providing public assistance who have to be on public assistance. It seems to me like there's something fundamentally broken there.
It's definitely broken, Harold. When we have people working for the state of Washington, providing essential services to Washingtonians and having to access free childcare or access food banks and food services because we don't pay them enough, that is a disgrace as a state agency. We should pay a living wage. And our state employees that provide these services to Washingtonians who are on hard times shouldn't be facing hard times while being employed through the state. We had workers making less than Starbucks employees making less than target employees. And they leave because they can't make enough to support themselves and their families.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of people who are unaware of this stuff. How do you bring this to Washingtonians' attention?
Josh and I actually met through Washington Federation of State Employees Policy Committee, and we really enjoy organizing in creative ways. We've done all kinds of stuff from email campaigns to our Lord of the Rings memes to talk about kind of what we're dealing with in state government. That's something that my local 889 is kind of famous or infamous for. And then what we're excited to talk about today is Josh and I recently collaborated on a musical piece explaining exactly what's going on with
A
this
musical
moment.
piece. You're not talking
Yeah.
like a big budget musical like Wicked with a whole bunch of people on stage dancing and that sort of thing, are you?
Well, maybe we'll get there at some point, but for now it's one song, and we call it the Washington for All anthem. And it's really meant to be a song for people to kind of adopt as their own.
That sounds amazing, Charles. Let's go ahead and listen to that right now.
And smoke, it's a lean time, we're broken in ways we can't name.
But 12 billionaires live among us, no cares for those strung with a spiral down game. Heard the governor say it's the poor who should pay, and the door out of this is with cuts. But thousands can stand arm in arm, hand in hand, smoke alarm. It's the house that is burning around us, and if we stand, we can say Washington's for all. Not just for the rich, put the people first. We're ready for a switch. If you're a millionaire, it's time to pay your share. Washington for all. Well, state workers they aid Washingtonians frayed when baloney financial firms lie.
Helping those fight addiction or trauma eviction, or mama just trying to get by.
Those remaking their life, children facing home strife, those embracing a college degree.
Who need ID or license, or roads for de-icing, or boats fixing bridges from sea.
Or a safe place to stay if there's care needs at play, or inspectors to say if a crop is okay.
Or protections at work when your boss is a jerk, or attorneys or clerks or museums or what.
Manage forests and camps, gooey ducks, oversee health programs and interpreters. Damn, help you access this stuff if your English is rough, and they're singing as one with the same refrain. That Washington's for all, and not just for the rich. Put the people first, we're ready for a switch. If you're a millionaire, it's time to pay your share. Washington for all.
Well, everyone in our state pays an equal sales tax rate, but the numbers don't work when you break it down economically. The poor who are busting their ass spend every penny keeping up with the working class, while the wealthy invest and watch it balloon astronomically.
So the people with money to save hide from tax in a separate enclave, and the little they put in state coffers comes out to just 3%. But for people whose budgets are lean, that tax burden comes out to 17, even more if you add in the property tax that's passed on as rent. There's 8 million folks in the state, taxing 400 could set the budget straight. But Bob Ferguson puts it on you and me and our colleagues and neighbors and families. Washington's for all, not just for the rich. Put the people first, we're ready for a switch. If you're a millionaire, it's time to pay your share. Washington for all. for all, not just for the rich. Put the people first.
That was fantastic. And what the listeners aren't able to see is the video that went with it that you put together. I'm going to add a link to the video in the show notes. And you know what, folks? I'm also going to post the entire song as a separate track here on the podcast channel. So, however you're listening to this, just go to the next show and you'll be able to listen to the song and forward it on to somebody who should hear it. So, Josh, I have to ask, are you on the Billboard charts yet? What are the Spotify downloads looking like?
You know, that's a great question. I actually texted Charles this morning and I said, I looked for our song on Spotify and I can't find it. And he said, yeah, because it's not on there yet. So if anybody knows how to put it on Spotify, I would love to hear it on Spotify because I listen to Spotify all the time. And right now I'm having to go to YouTube and watch it, which I have done a couple of times because shooting this video was so much fun. I am from Local 313 out of Vancouver, Washington. We had the opportunity to collaborate with Local 889 and Local 443. Huge shout out to Local 443 allowing us to use their building for some of the shots and helping us fill up the room for dancing and different scenes. It was super fun to do this music video with Charles and everybody else who participated.
Yeah, it's not just the two of you playing your instruments, including that penny whistle that I mentioned earlier. It's actually a bunch of people in several of the scenes wearing that AFSCME green. So those are all AFSCME members?
Yeah, for the most part. I think we had a few family members there supporting us as well.
How long did it take to put this thing together?
Well, Harold, what's crazy is we never did this in person. So through writing the song, recording the song, it wasn't until we shot the music video that Charles and I ever played this song together live. I mean, it's a crazy story that we wrote it all over video communication.
Yeah, Josh is in Vancouver, Portland, and I'm in Seattle. So we did this by Zoom to write the song, Zoom and text message. And we came up with the lyrics and the music and put it together. And then we each, from our own respective homes, recorded each instrument, each layer of vocals. I probably spent, I don't know, like 24 hours or something editing the audio itself. And then for the video, we spent all of last Saturday and a bunch of Sunday afternoon. Both of us ran down to Olympia and met up and did a bunch of shooting. And then I edited probably another, 10, 16 hours of video together between Saturday and Tuesday to get this video finished.
I can't tell you the amount of work that Charles put into this. One of my favorite stories from our videoing was we had gone to Brewery Falls and we went and hiked all the way down to the bottom where we wanted to get the good shot. And there was a crowd of people there. And it was like, oh, this is so cool. We're going to like play our song and there's a crowd of people. And Charles warns everybody, hey, we have like a guide track. So we're just playing along with the guide track because we're videoing. So if we're a little off, like don't make fun of us and don't look at us weird. And everybody's, they're standing around, they're listening, they're jiving to the song. And Charles goes, let's do it again. And I looked around and nobody was there. So I figured that, maybe it's catchy, maybe it's not, but maybe people don't want to listen to it on repeat when Charles and I are not quite on rhythm and trying to make a music video while dancing. But, I feel like it turned out well.
I think a lot of people are going to want to listen to it on repeat. But the big question is, are you going to play it live? I mean, is there a place where people can actually hear you play this song live?
Yes, there is. So on Wednesday the 9th, we're going to have a mass rally of state workers in opposition to these furloughs and cuts to state programs, and really promoting that message that the song promotes of it's time for Washington to fix its regressive tax code. We're doing that in Olympia at the Tivoli Fountain right outside the Capitol. And we're actually going to be marching around the Capitol grounds, maybe into the Capitol building, and singing this song. So Josh and I are really excited to lead this song. We put this video out in part to let people learn the song a little bit over this week before they get there. Because we're talking about members from all corners of the state of Washington.
Wow. I really wish I could be down there in Olympia on the 9th, but I'm stuck here in town. I just wish there was a way that I could attend the rally.
Well, if you're talking about a town in Washington, I'm almost positive that we've got satellite rallies going off in lots of areas in town, and maybe even in every single region in the state.
Really?
Off the top of my head, I can say there are satellite rallies being organized. And I just want to shout out all of my union siblings across this state, and especially those in DCYF who have really taken on leadership here. What you're seeing in this coming week has all been put together at the local level. We are seeing members in Spokane, members in Yakima, members in Tri-Cities, Vancouver, Tacoma, Lakewood, Bremerton, Bellingham, Seattle, Kent, Everett, Smoky Point, and I apologize if I missed anyone, but you can hear all up and down I-5, across I-90, 84, and really all over the state. We're seeing local union members organizing these local rallies in their hometowns because not everybody has the privilege of taking a day off of work to go to Olympia.
So, Charles, Josh, if someone wants to find out if there is a rally on April 9th in their town, where would they go to find that out?
Yeah, my local 889, we have an Instagram feed that has all of the posters for all the different locations posted. So that's a quick reference. I think that local 443 and WFC Council 28 on Instagram are also both collaborating on that post. You can also look with your own local if you're involved with WFC. You can look at your own local and see if they have information at their local page.
Well, Josh, Charles, we're coming to the end of our time here. Any parting thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this when I originally reached out to you, and I thought, if Harold asked me, why am I doing this? What is my answer going to be? And my answer is because music sticks. It sticks in our heads. If there's a message to it, especially that speaks to what people believe in, they will walk around singing a song that they believe in. And so I'm hoping that what Charles and I were able to create was a song for all Washingtonians that they can believe in, that they can walk around singing. The other piece of that is the game Mindworm. My wife and I play a game called Mindworm, where you can hum or whistle or something to a tune of a song. And if you get the other person to do it without singing any of the words of the song, you've mindwormed them. So my hope is that this song mindworms our Governor, Bob Ferguson, that this song mindworms every one of our elected legislative representatives, and that it changes their mind based on the information we provide them in the song. And if it doesn't, that this song haunts them and that it mindworms them for a long time.
I think what I would say is just that we are in a budget crisis right now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think we as a state, we as a country are really facing a critical moment. And what we do next matters for the future that we're going to have. And it means that we have an opportunity right now to make a drastic change in the way that we've been operating as a state that's going to uplift the people that need to be uplifted and not the people who are already the most wealthy, privileged, and powerful. And so my hope with our song was that we could bring some testimony to that and that it can connect in, like Josh was saying, a different way, beyond the facts and figures, although we've got some of that in the song.
Billionaires and multimillionaires will always go to people in power. Whether the people in power cater to the multimillionaires and the billionaires, or the people in power catered to the people who elected them, the billionaires will always go to the people in the power. So what we need is legislative representatives who represent us as the people, and they will do what we as the people want, because the people with money only care about making money, and they'll work with whoever's in charge. We don't have to put people in charge whose only goal is to make more money.
Well, Josh Eaton, Charles Loeffler, thank you so much for being here. And one way or another, I think that this period in time is going to leave a legacy, even if it's just your song haunting Governor Ferguson and the legislators.
May it ever be so. Thank you so much, Harold.
Thank you so much for having us. This was a blast.
And thank you, working people, for joining us on another episode of Working to Live in Southwest Washington, produced by the Southwest Washington Central Labor Council. You know, folks, I mentioned earlier that the Southwest Washington Central Labor Council is dedicated to achieving the highest standards of living, good working conditions, and family wage jobs for everyone, whether you're a social worker or you work at the Department of Transportation, or you're a podcast host. You still deserve good working conditions and a family wage job. That's why this podcast was recorded under a SAG-AFTRA collective bargaining agreement. Remember, working people, this is your show. We want to know what you want to hear on it. Email us at podcast@swwaclc.org. Or find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SWWACLC. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to the show. And while you're at it, give us 5 stars or play your musical instruments at the bottom of the waterfall or whatever your podcast listening platform of choice gives you to let people know you like what we're doing here. One last thing, folks. Josh mentioned just now that the billionaires will always go to the people in power. Now, we didn't really talk all that much during the show about billionaires, but they're a part of this whole public finance thing. It really is kind of like your own personal finance in your own household. You have money that comes in. You have money that goes out. Now, the state government does spend money, and some of what it spends money on are the people who provide government services. But they have to bring money in, too. Just like in your household, you have to bring money in. If you end up in a budget crunch, you can trim your spending, but after a while, you got to do something to bring more money in. You have to look for that second job, or maybe sell some of the things that you've accumulated, or whatever. Well, the state could do that as well. The state could tax people who are making over a certain amount. Those people that Josh and Charles mentioned in the song. So think about that as you're forwarding that song on to your friends and family. Think about that as you're looking up whether there's a public employees rally in your town, or as you're driving to Olympia to take part in the big rally at the state capitol. Yeah, you can trim expenses, but you also have to be able to bring more money in. We'll see you soon.